Hi, this is Karen McNall and I'm with inspiredbygram.com. Today we're going to be using the Come Sail Away suite from Stampin' Up. It's in the annual catalog from 2019-2020, and this is a suite that I absolutely fell in love with when I attended on stage back in April of 2019. What I like about this suite is if you want to purchase the entire suite, there's one item number, and that's 152175. That will get you all of the products offered in the suite. Now, I didn't purchase the entire suite. What I did was I purchased the Sailing Home bundle. So with the bundle, you get the stamp set and the dies, and you save 10%. So I always like saving the 10% or anything. I also purchased the Designer Series paper, the baker's twine, and let's see, the trinkets as well. So, and sometimes I just kind of pick and choose what I want to use, and then maybe I'll go back to it later and purchase some of the other things that are in the suite. But again, this is on page 144, 145, and 146. So let me set this catalog aside, and I'll show you the card we're going to be making today. So here's the card we're going to be making. We'll be watercoloring. We'll be using our blends. So there's a lot going on in this card. Although it is fairly simple, the steps to get it accomplished may be a little long for you on camera. But anyway, I offered this card for my beginners, and they absolutely loved it. So this card is for any level. So let's set this aside. And let me bring in the stamp set. This is called Sailing Home. So we'll be using the larger sailboat, the Congrats, and let's see, Set Sail in the Direction of Your Dreams, and also the Seagulls here. For the dies, we'll be only using one die in the set, and we'll be also using two other dies as well, so 3 different die sets. So we have the, what is this called? I've got it over here. Hold on just a second. This is called the Smooth Sailing Dies. So we'll be using the large sailboat. So you've got to be careful because there's a smaller one in the die set. We're also going to be using the largest oval from the Stitch Shape Framelits. And for the largest scallop oval, this comes from the Layering Ovals Framelits. Okay, so the Designer Series paper we're going to be using comes from the Come Sail Away, and it's on page 167 of your annual catalog. And it coordinates with Balmy Blue, Basic Black, Mossy Meadow, Night of Navy, Soft Suede, and Whisper White. If you would like this template, just give me an email to inspiredbygram@gmail.com, and I can send this out to you. And it's got all the colors here, also where you find the suite in your catalog, item numbers, and all that good stuff. So I can send that your way, or you can just take a snapshot of this and create your own. All right, so for the card we're going to be making, let's see, it's on my desk here somewhere. All right, here's my card kit. A lot of the big shot work I've already done ahead of time. So we've got our Whisper White envelope. We've got a piece of the shimmery white cardstock. So this is in the catalog, so make sure it's with the Whisper White and the thick Whisper White paper basics. We're also using watercolor paper. So if you notice on watercolor paper, there's 2 different sides. There's a smooth side and there's a rough side. So I die cut this out with a stitched oval, use it on the smooth side. I find it's easier to stamp on a smooth side. We've got our scallop circle. We've got a piece of the Designer Series paper, a strip that's a 1/2 inch by 4 inches. We've got 2 pieces of the Designer Series paper, and we'll be using the one with a compass and the stripes. Okay, and those are cut 4 inches by 2 5/8, so 2 pieces, same size. Our card base is a piece of Night of Navy, and this is a top folding card, which I don't do many top folding cards, but I liked how I can string the baker's twine around it, and you'll see the baker's twine on the inside. And for the inside panel, this is just your basic 4 by 5 1/4 Whisper White. Okay, so let's try to get some of these pieces out of the way. And we're going to be watercoloring first. So we will need our Whisper White, 4 by 5 1/4, and our, that's the watercolor paper here. So I just want to make sure I don't get anything wet. And I've got to bring in a little bit of, I've got a napkin here, so. All right, for our ink color, we will be using Night of Navy ink. So let me just squish this a little bit and pop it open. And so you can tell, it's kind of like a hot mess. This is an ink pad we used in my class, my retreat, and my class I teach on Wednesdays. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just get some water in the cover of the ink pad, and just wanted to get that going right now so it's set. And right now I'm just going to give this a wash. Just get some water on your watercolor paper and make sure you're watercoloring it on the correct side. Remember the smooth side. Now I'm just going to bring in some of this Night of Navy ink, and I'm not adding any water. I'm just using my wrist in my hand grip to just spread that ink, because there's already enough water on that watercolor paper. Now you can get this as dark as you wish. It kind of represents, like, you know, it could be a stormy sky, it could be just a nice blue sky. But what I like to do is I try to get all this covered with ink. Okay, even the edges here, because I don't like the white coming through when I do a watercolor wash. Okay, so that's pretty good right now. So what I want to do is I want to set this aside so hopefully this dries in time, because we're going to want to stamp on it. And if it doesn't, I'll have to get in my heat tool. So now on the inside of the card, let me show you the inside of the card. And it looks like this. So we're going to do another watercolor wash here, and we'll stamp this a little bit later. And see how I was talking about the baker's twine? It comes through on the inside of your card, which I think was really nice. Just really shows off the baker's twine. All right, so again, I'm going to bring in my Whisper White, and I don't want to put a lot of ink on this. I'm just going to give it a nice little wash, and that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm all done with this, and make sure when you're done with your aqua painter, you're just going to squirt it out so that there's no more ink coming out and you don't contaminate your other ink pads that you may use. All right, so we're going to set that aside, and let's see what we're going to do. We are going, oh my goodness, that just came apart. Well, we'll fix that later. I've never had that happen. That is so funny. Anyway, all right, so we're going to move on. Let's see. Let's do our stamping. So I've got the shimmery white, and on the shimmery white, it's just got a little bit of glitter in the paper. So I think it's really nice to use your blends on. So I'm going to bring in my Memento ink. Remember, Memento black goes with your blends. And my stamp, and this is the largest sailboat. And what I like to do when I use my Memento ink is I just like to take the ink pad to the stamp. I just find I have a lot better control, and I want to make sure I've got that inked up really well. So I'm just going to stamp this down, hold it in place for about 5 seconds, and then you're done. So we're going to set this aside, and while we're stamping the sailboat, I like to carry my theme throughout the card. So this is my envelope, so we need to also stamp the envelope. So let me bring in my envelope and make sure your flap is going the correct way. You don't want an upside down envelope. And we're just gonna give that a nice little rub. And we'll stamp this right down in the lower left corner. All right. So those are done. And what we're gonna do now is we are going to use our blends. So this card, I'm going to use a Daffodil Delight for the sails. Someone did that at my retreat, and I absolutely love the combination. So we're going to be using Daffodil Delight. We're going to be using Night of Navy for the water, and we're using Crumb Cake for the part of the boat. So how I like to color is I like to start with the lightest and then go darker. So don't forget you've got a brush tip and a fine tip. So I find with this sailboat, it's kind of a small area, so I'm going to use the fine tip. And again, I'm starting out with just the light. Okay, so we're just going to color that in. And I'm working on the envelope right now. Okay, and then we'll switch over to the shimmery white, which will die cut this out after. And again, I'm just filling this in. And with the this tip, you've got a little bit more control than the brush tip. All right, so we're done with that one for right now. Now we're going to bring in the darker color of the Daffodil Delight. And where the shading goes is where there's this black dark ink here. So I'm just going to go left to right, kind of like a scribbling, because that's the way the sail is shadowing. And then up here, I'm just going to go over where these darker shading is here. Okay, so again, we'll do this over here on the envelope. Now, and on the envelope, I'm not pressing down very hard because I don't want that to bleed through all the way to the back. And I don't find that it does. So I've never found that it actually has done that. So, all right, so we've got the dark on. Now I'm going to bring back in the light. And I'm just going to smooth the colors out. Okay, so let me just get this one done. All right, so now we've got the sails all done. Now let's bring in our crumb cake. I'm going to use the light, start with a light. And again, I'm using the brush tip, and I'm just going to go right in this area here. Okay, now I'm going to bring in the dark. Just where it's got a lot of ink here, I'm going to just give it a heavy, darker color. And if you press harder with the marker, you'll get a much darker result. Now I'm doing a lighter touch up here. Now I'm going to bring back in my lighter shade of crumb cake. And again over here. So see how I'm going back and forth? So I'm not always changing out markers. I get one section done and then I repeat if I'm doing multiple sections here. So now I'm just going to do the water. So I'm going to bring in, again, this is the envelope. I'm just going to lightly color down. You can do this any way you want. Okay, and then over here, this one's going to get die cut, so it doesn't really matter how much you use for the markers. Now I'm going to use the brush tip on this. You don't need as much control. And now I'm just going to bring this in. Okay, so now I've got that all set, and what I'm going to do is die cut it out with my die cutting machine. But for the sake of time, I have actually already done that. And it is over here, off to the side here. And I want to show you, I actually did two, so I can show you the difference here. I could just pick it up. Okay, so when it's die cut, there's a little piece that gets left in here, so you want to pop that out. Okay, so you can, oh, I don't really have a dark color. Hold on, let me just bring in the back side of this card here so you can see it. So you can see where the die cuts out for the sail. I think that's really cool. Just a very thin piece there of the sail. And here's the other one here. So if you see, if you can kind of notice, it looks like I didn't really die cut this 100% accurate. So what I would do is I would just use my blends and I would color in very quickly. You can just actually pick it up and then just color it and no one will ever know. And then I actually like to do the edges too, just to make sure there's no white showing. Okay, so let me put this one aside. And I'm gonna check on the watercolor paper. It's actually almost ready. So now what we can do is we can check out this one. Okay, that one's dry. So let's stamp congrats. And again, we're going to ink that up in my half of a ink pad. So we'll get that fixed after. And I'm just putting congrats. So that one is all done. And the next step we will do is, let's see, I think I'm gonna wait to stamp the rest of this. Let's assemble part of the card. So we will bring in our card base, and this is a piece of Night of Navy, and it's cut 4.5 by 11, scored at 5.5. And we will bring in our inside panel and my adhesive. And I'm just gonna, I always just run adhesive on the top side of my panels. I don't run it around all 4 sides because I honestly don't think you need it, because these will stay in very nicely. Okay, so that is all done, the inside. Now what we're going to do is we're gonna add the designer series paper, and we'll just flip this over and add our adhesive on all 4 sides. All right, and it's 1/4 of an inch border on all 3 sides. Okay, so now this one you want to be careful because this is a compass and we don't want our south going north and vice versa. So just be careful when you add the designer series paper because this is a directional piece. All right, so flip this around. I've got my south going south, and I'm just simply lining this up flush to the other piece we just laid down there. Okay, and again, that was 2 5/8 by 4. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in the baker's twine, and this is thick baker's twine. What I'm gonna do is I am going to wrap it around 2 times. 1, 2, okay. Now I'm going to make, let me do that again. That was like way too fast. All right, so I want enough hanging over the edge. So 1 and 2 and meet it around on this side. Okay. So, and let me just bring in my ribbon scissors here just to trim this off. It'll be easier to work with. All right, so now I'm just going to wrap this around both sides, and I'm just going to simply form a knot. And hopefully I'll get this tight enough. Okay, so now that looks good. We're just gonna slide that up in place. If your baker's twine is a little bit too loose, you can use a glue dot and put it underneath the knot. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is just gonna trim off this excess. Okay, and we'll split this. So I need my take a pick tool. This is how I split. I take the sharp pointy end and I just split it by just putting that sharp pointer through all the baker's twine. And it looks like I'm going to have to trim this again because one side is a little bit too long. But this gives a frayed look to it. Just adds a little bit more detail to your card and embellishment. All right, so let me just trim this off again. You want it about 1/2 inch long. Okay, so that's pretty good. All right, so the next step, let's first bring this in. Okay, so that's good enough. We can stamp on this. All right, so we want our Night of Navy ink. And let's see, we want to stamp the sentiment. And we'll just ink this up. I don't know where my card went, but we're just going to put it over here on this side and hold it for a good 5 seconds because this is watercolor paper and you want that ink to transfer into the paper. Okay, so that's good. All right, that's perfect actually. Now what we're going to do is ink up the seagulls. Actually, I'm doing this reverse, but that's okay. All right, so I want my seagulls to go over here. Let's see, I'm going to put one here. So I just used this part of the seagull, the larger one, and I'm going to re-ink, and I'm going to add some more seagulls over here. And remember, this is a really small stamp, so it's easy to transfer ink incorrectly, like I did right there. But it kind of looks like another bird, so I'm going with it. All right, so now let's adhere this all together. So I find that your regular adhesive will not work as well on watercolor paper, so I just simply use my tear and tape. And I'm going to put a strip down the center and just tear it off. Of course, it didn't tear off correctly. And we're just going to add another piece over there. And over here. 3 strips is just fine. So you want to make sure you really give that a good press because it's so much easier to remove, well, most of the time. Oh, jeez, Louise. Let's get our take a pick tool. All right, see, you got to have one of these because it kind of works, right? All right, it's again another humid night, so maybe that's it. I'll blame it on the humidity, okay? Because something's got to give. Usually I don't have any issue with the tear and tape, and tonight, forget it, right? Okay, so I'm going to take this, and I'm going to adhere it. Look at this hot mess I got here. Oh, boy. All right, so we're going to just add this on. Okay, I'm going to flip it because I don't want to transfer any ink. And that sets real nice. Okay, so now we need our Stampin' Dimensionals. We're getting there, ladies and guys. All right, so I've got some dimensionals here, and I need to cut them because we don't want to waste. So I'm just going to bring in, oh my God, my scissors just broke. Oh, this is just so funny. Oh my goodness, it's a Monday night. All right, we got enough. All right, so we do not want dimensionals here because that's where our baker's twine is. So we're going to put a dimensional up here. We're going to put one a little bit higher than we normally would. We're going to put one over here. And we'll put one down here, here, and here. Okay, so hopefully our baker's twine will go right through there. So now we're just going to give it a nice little press with our fingernails because we find that the dimensional backings come off so super simple when you do that step. And again, on a hot day, humid day, the dimensionals seem to like just be like really super sticky. Okay, so we got that. Let's bring in our card. Here's our card that I was trying to make. Oh, I guess I did do it right. Some reason I thought I stamped the sentiment on the right side. All right, so we want to make sure our baker's twine is good. And we're going to just put this down. I want to actually move it over. So what I'm doing is I'm going to slide that under this. Okay, and I'm looking to make sure I have got enough of that designer series paper over there showing. I'm just going to give it a nice little press. And we'll make sure our baker's twine is in good spot. I think what I'm going to do is actually my baker's twine is just a little bit too loose, so I'm going to show you. I just took a glue dot and put it at the end of my take a pick tool, slide it under there, press down on the knot, and release. Now I know that's going to see that's so much better. Okay. All right, we're getting there. All right, so here's our yellow Daffodil Delight sail bow. I just love the color. I like the Calypso Coral one as well. All right, so now what we're going to do is we need some more dimensionals. And let's see, where did I'll use some of our smaller ones. And I'm just going to take them off the take a pick with the take a pick tool because these are really tiny and I find that they're really hard actually to take off with just using your fingers. So using your take a pick tool, Hopefully I've sold you on one of these, because I didn't know if I liked it at first, but I love it now because it's so super sharp. You got to be really careful. You don't want to poke yourself. Okay, again, so we're just going to release the backings, and we'll just peel those off, throw them on our desk. You don't want to know what my desk looks like right now. If I could show you, I would. It's just a creative prettiness, I guess. All right, so we're just going to add this down. Okay. Oh, I did forget one thing. On this side, because it's super high, it's already stuck up on dimensionals, you want to stack your dimensionals. So let me see if you can see this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack 2 of these minis, press them together. Now I've got to remove that backing. Okay, and now I'm going to gently push it down. So now it's totally at the same height. So I don't know if you've ever done that, stack your dimensionals, but there you go. All right, so we've got the front of the card done. We've got the inside of the, actually we don't have the front done because we're going to add a little jazz to that. Inside is done. The outside is almost done. Our envelope is done, almost done, because we're going to add a wink of Stella to the sails. It's just going to give you a little bit more pizzazz, and it's actually, if you watch, hopefully you can see, the ink color is getting just a little bit darker. Not sure if you can see that or not, but it just gives it just a little something. And then we're going to, of course, do our sail that's on our envelope. Let me just bring that up to the camera. Again, I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but I can, and it looks really nice. All right, so here's a card we just created here, and we have our Calypso Coral card as well with our matching envelope. So hopefully you learned a little bit something new, and you can tell right here this one's a lot darker than this one, so it just depends on how much ink you transfer on to your watercolor paper and how much water you use. So any of these supplies can be purchased at inspiredbygram.com, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.